So a lot of the times when I make a video, I try and make sure that the content it's based around is something that is either new or in the limelight. I mean, if you look at the foundation of my channel, it was based off of Helldivers 2, which at the time was a game that had just come out. That's why I felt that I had something to say. I try my hardest not to make videos on older games or older pieces of content that I have nothing new to say. I mean, a lot of people have already brought quite a bit to the table with those games, and yet for a game like Risk of Rain 2, I really wanted to do a video. In fact, if you look at my community tab, at one point I was going to stream my first playthrough of the game, and I really did want to do that, but I just kept putting it off. I just kept saying, well, maybe next week I'll do it, maybe next week, and I just kept putting it off and off and off, and Risk of Rain 2 ended up sitting on my PlayStation 5 for, I don't know, maybe 2 months, and I never touched it. And one of the reasons I never touched it was I thought, how am I going to make a video off of a game that's essentially 5 years old? Obviously, people still play it. It's still extremely popular. It had so many great reviews when it came out. It's a super loved game, even with a new developer kind of behind it that maybe isn't as loved as the original. But the game is popular and the game is great. I knew that. How on earth am I going to make a video that really offers anything new to the conversation? And that's when I figured out that, you know, my video here is not necessarily about how great Risk of Rain 2 is. Everybody knows that. We all know that. But it's looking more at the process of understanding a game. When a new game comes out, normally what I do is go straight to YouTube and watch a bunch of videos on how does this work, how does that work, how do these mechanics work, what are the secrets, what do I need to do to beat the game. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, again, my channel was founded off of that idea. Helldivers 2 came out and I started making weapon reviews, I started making explanation videos. I ended up doing away with those because I thought, you know, there's other people out there on this platform that are doing it much better than I am, that can explain these things much better than I can. And I just kind of stuck with the lore and the story and the community events that were happening. So there's nothing wrong with either creating that content or consuming that content. I do it myself. But with Risk of Rain 2, when I booted the game up, I really thought, you know, I'm going to try and challenge myself here to not look up anything. I've seen some gameplay in the past, I've watched some playthroughs, but I don't really remember anything. I don't have anything solid in my head like, oh yeah, I need to do this, 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 and this. And I think you can see that in my gameplay. I mean, here's a clip of me falling off the map in my first round. And I think this is something that a lot of people should try more often with a game. Again, there's nothing wrong with looking up tutorials or looking up how something works in a game, especially if it's becoming a little frustrating, or if the game doesn't teach you how to do something particularly well. This is something that we saw actually in the game Concord. There's this mention of a tutorial mode where you can take any character into an area and test out their abilities and see how they work, but it wasn't in the beta. You know, there's some discussion there that, hey, it's a beta, it doesn't need to be there, but I think it should have been in there, and that was a big frustration. I ended up having to look up on YouTube, how does this character work? How does it do this? You know, what am I doing? And that was kind of frustrating. So there is a reason for those videos, for that type of content, and I don't think it's wrong to consume it, but I also think that there can be a lot of fun in discovering how a game works. It really reminds me of a game that my brother and I played growing up, and that is Metroid Prime on the GameCube. At the time, the internet did exist. Don't worry, I'm not getting my years out of date. I'm not getting my timelines mixed up. But we weren't really on the internet at the time. We didn't really browse the internet. We didn't understand that you could go on the internet and look up tutorials or guides. And so for us, Metroid Prime was this experience of just walking around and discovering stuff and just being fully immersed in a world and having this sense of wonder and discovery. And Risk of Rain 2 is really giving me that feeling again. Obviously, the game's a little bit different. It's kind of this endless game where you just keep going and going until you can't go anymore. And it's doing another run. Hey, I failed on this run. I'm going to jump back in and do one more run. And then it's, you know, 3 a.m. in the morning and you've done so many runs and you keep losing at the silliest opportunities in the game and you've just become so frustrated with it, but you keep going back to it. So that is a little bit different than a game like Metroid Prime or an open world game, we'll say, that has so many secrets locked behind it. But Risk of Rain 2 has this eerily familiar familiar sense to it that is just inviting you in to explore. Hey, how can I best optimize this character? Hey, what do these different abilities mean? I mean, when I jumped in the game, I had no idea what any of these abilities are. I'm like, this one looks like a sword. What does that do? Oh, okay, it gives me, 10% chance to inflict bleed on an enemy. Oh, okay. All right, I kind of understand that. But now that I've seen that item once when I played through again, I know, hey, that's the item that gives me bleed. And so that's a whole lot more fun than having, the Risk of Rain 2 wiki up on my second monitor to say, oh, yep, hey, that's the bleed one. I want that one. I don't want that one. It's this sense of discovery and playing around and figuring out how the game works that is something that I feel like I've been missing for so long in playing games. Now, obviously, watching the footage here, you're probably thinking, man, come on, you could do this better, you could do that, you could optimize this. And yes, that's true. That's a part of this game is optimizing your items and optimizing your run, and I totally get that. But again, I'm trying my hardest not to be so much, well, we'll say chronically online when it comes to this game. To have something up on the side showing me what every item does, or trying to optimize my run to the exact numbers, but just to jump in the game and get lost in the world and, well, to just play the game. Again, it's something that I feel like I've been missing for a long, long time. Recently, I had a video on Destiny 2, and that was a game that I love for all of its issues and purposes, and while I have left that game behind, when I did play that game, every time I played it, I would have a checklist. Okay, I need to do this, and I need to do that, and I need to optimize this, and I need to make sure that I get this type of armor with this type of stat on it. And again, there's nothing wrong with crunching the numbers or putting together some really insane build. But sometimes in playing games, I personally just want to jump into a world and just kind of get lost and go, hey, you know what? I don't know what this does. I don't know how this character works, but I'm going to just go for it and see how it turns out. And again, you can see how it turns out when I fell off the cliff because I wasn't paying attention, because I didn't know how abilities worked. That's partially on me because I didn't read the explanations in the main menu. That's something that I did do when I tried out the Huntress character. But that brings up another point. There's multiple characters in Risk of Rain 2, I know that. And I'm going over there thinking, man, how do I unlock these other characters? And my initial instinct is, well, let me pull up Google and let me look up how to unlock all the characters in Risk of Rain 2. And I stopped myself. I said, no, hold on a second. Just play the game and see what you can unlock. See what you can achieve. Try your hardest not to go up and look tutorials and descriptions and all these things. Try to really just immerse yourself into the game. This game is such a treat. It's such an amazingly well-crafted, well-thought-out game. You know it's fun enough and that it has been created in such an amazing way that you don't need to look up those things right from the get-go. You can just play, and the game will naturally lead you where you need to go, just like Metroid Prime. And at least that's been my experience with Risk of Rain 2. And I think I'm going to continue to do some videos on the game here and there as I learn more and as I discover more. Again, I want to make sure that the content on this channel brings something new to the table, so I'm definitely not going to be doing, hey, here's a guide on how best to use the Huntress. That would be a horrible video because I suck at playing the Huntress, which means that I need to practice more with that character. But I do think that there is space to talk about these ideas in games, that you just naturally find your way through it, and trying your hardest not to over-consume on guides and builds and things like this, and to just play the game and experiment and have fun with it. I think there is a level of fun that is being maybe lost in the gaming sphere because we have so many videos on how best to optimize this and that. And again, I can't say enough that I don't think that content is bad, or that people who make that content is bad. Again, I made it, guilty as charged myself. But I feel like people could really unlock a forgotten level of fun by just booting up a game and not looking at anything and just saying, I'm going to figure this out on my own. I'm just going to go and play the game however I can and see how I do. And I think that's something that you should try as well next time you pick up a new game, or a game like Risk of Rain 2 that's 5 years old. And I'm pretty much late to the party at this point, henceforth the title of this video. But that's what I think about Risk of Rain 2 and the process of discovering a game without using the internet on the side to kind of reinforce what you know going into it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, both about Risk of Rain 2, but also your thoughts on this this topic on going into a game blind and just discovering it for yourself. That's all for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.